The mismanagement of Star Wars in the clutches of EA. Some of the most grueling and unbearable points of contention I've ever had with something I loved. And I literally got cheated on. EA is the type of scum a game like Cyberpunk would have successfully highlighted, if it also too as well wasn't ran by the type of scum who treats art with the level of poise and empathy as that Whopper you just got from Burger King. Not the upscale gentrified part of town Burger King, the part of town where there's always clouds in the sky, and you can tell every house has dishes in the sink without even walking into them. The part of town where roaches brazenly look through the fridge for food, cause what the fuck you finna do? He pays half the rent too, nigga, shut up. Star Wars is taking an intellectual beating. From Disney handling the sequel trilogy so poorly, not a single person working on the fucking franchise thought, hey, we should get Chewbacca, Leia, Luke, and Han in the same scene together again before any of these people, let's say, literally fucking die. To the High Republic retconning the religious practices of the Jedi, saying they can in fact have sex, which is in direct contradiction to everything. Literally everything. But the biggest plight to the Star Wars intellectual property is not the continuity-breaking retcons, everything they did in the sequel trilogy, or the feverish attempts to phase out everything successfully done in Legends material, but the fact that Disney is so reluctant on giving Star Wars the mature lens that it deserves. Star Wars treating itself like it's only for kids. It's like people playing Mortal Kombat with a gore filter. Fucking redundant. I don't know what the fuck possessed Disney to give Star Wars to EA via an exclusivity deal, but that shit served to be one of the worst decisions it's made with any of its intellectual properties, which is insane when you realize Jim Crow is a fucking character. Remember that video EA shitted out in 2016? EA Star Wars a look ahead. Oh golly, I can only imagine what wonderful games will come from the talented studios Visceral Games and BioWare. Jesus Christ. Star Wars 1313, an untitled rated M mall-focused video game, an untitled open-world RPG set in the Star Wars universe made by the same people who made Dead Space, an untitled project that was to be a spin-off series of Battlefront, an untitled project that promised to allow you to be multiple factions in the Star Wars universe. There's no way they canceled all of these. They canceled all of these. Look at what we got instead, huh? Battlefront, that's okay. Fallen Order, that was pretty good. That was pretty good. Battlefront 2, shit. Damn. Fuck. By the way, on top of the ones I just mentioned, there's over 20 more Star Wars titles that were canceled. 25 titles canceled total, including names like Rebel Jedi, Jedi Rebel, Scum and Villainy, 2 new Jedi Knights games, I think even 3, and one called Dark Jedi, which is giving me strong I am all of me vibes. But I like that, of course, Shadow the Hedgehog was cool as fuck. Honestly though, the bastardizing of this IP has to cease. 25 canceled projects, at least, and everything after 2012 was garbage. We are fucking starving. And when I say we, I don't mean the 13-year-old who thinks Rey is the most powerful Force wielder of all time. I mean the fans who have gone almost an entire fucking decade without any significant entry to the Star Wars continuity across all platforms. I feel the same way about episode 8 and 9, the same way a parent feels about the Grubhub dancing fucking dad. Companies refuse to treat their customers with any level of intellectual reverence or respect. And to be honest, while it is incredibly insulting, they are correct. How can the public be expected to react in any way beyond belligerent volatility when you look at past dramas exploding into grandiose proportion? However, I must say, we can argue whether or not the public deserve that level of reverence, but I think objectively, children do. Let me explain. Let's look back to the 1990s and 2000s. If I told you let's make a show about a 20-something-year-old incel mama's boy virgin who hangs out with a 10-year-old and tries to prey on women like a starving lion, you'd think I took a dick-sized blunt to the face when I pitched that in a board meeting. And they probably did, because Johnny Bravo fucking exists. Let's look at another example from the same time period. One of my favorite shows of all time. Not for its art style or plot, but for the respect it showed to the average kid viewer, Samurai Jack. Samurai Jack was in direct competition with Powerpuff Girls, and it was a striking rivalry. But these shows complemented one another while appealing to the same audience for polarly opposite reasons. Powerpuff Girls was over the top, hyperactive with verbose sound effects that had you creaming in your little jorts, and transitions that would have you from Japan to New York in 2 frames. Samurai Jack was the exact opposite. Everything about Samurai Jack wasn't slow per se, but it was deliberate. Every movement had purpose, the sound of floorboards creaking under wooden clogs, the shifting of snow, and absolute silence otherwise. All of this was directly opposite to what we picture our kids behaving. Kids are expected to have short attention spans, needing constant stimulation. What we didn't realize, and even now scarcely do to an extent, is that kids don't need hyperstimulation. They need coercion and engagement. In other words, a reason to give a fuck. To follow up on Samurai Jack, when it returned 13 years later, recognized that it was no longer placating to the child audience it once served. The children who watched it grew up. We were all young adults at that point now, and as such, the show shifted its weight and depth to accommodate with our new evolved ability to detect nuance and symbolism. It didn't simply shift to a new child audience. It respected its roots and welcomed adulthood as it reconnected with the people who grew up on it. If a kid's show can look at itself and make that determination, how the fuck can something as heavy and innately complex as Star Wars stare at its own history in the fucking face and do the opposite? That's like a mom reading her kid a Star Wars bedtime story. And when she talks about episode 3, little Billy goes, "But mommy, why do the Sith hate the Jedi?" And you watch this bitch in real time stare you in the face and tiptoe around the racial genocide. I'm a black American. If I want to be lied to about the brutality of imperialist agendas and shifting systems of government who committed genocide on natives, I will simply walk down my local ghetto. And that's the point. I look at Star Wars to escape. I don't want political agendas. I want political themes. The name of the goddamn intellectual property is Star Wars. If I played Republic Commando on the Elon Musk neural chip, I'd have PTS fucking D. How the fuck do you take the overwhelming trauma, devastation, and brutality of large-scale war formatted to Disney XD and wonder why it fucking sucks? Because that's not Star Wars. At that point, it just becomes yet another watered-down Disney property peddled to kids to sell merchandise. Oh. Well shit. Look man, I get your mascot is literally a fucking vermin, but there's no need to plague my first love with your pestilence. I was casting Force Lightning before I gave my father his first hug. It's actually true. Damn. This is the household title you have. It's not fucking Planes 2. This is the grandfather of modern media you snagged from George Lucas, who somehow managed to retain the kind of naivety you see in a 15-year-old at 67. I get, as a conglomerate, you could probably give two fucks about artistic integrity. More so are you concerned with a formula that works. So hear me out. The one you got doesn't. That shit is ass. I'm a grown-ass man. The fuck I look like tuning into the same channel my nephew does so I can study up on lore. Something don't sit right when I'm waiting for Yo Gabba Gabba to end so I can watch two disabled war veterans try to kill the traumatized old man with PTSD because their religious beliefs contradict one another. That's the shit you watch on HBO with Game of Thrones, not Brandy and Mr. fucking Whiskers. This is not Steven Universe. You're not gonna make a conflict as nuanced and deep as Maul and Obiwan and put it on the same level as some Galilean space rocks, making racial genocide sound like I'm farming ores in Minecraft. A little violence never hurt anybody. I mean, look at me. My dad introduced me to God of War when I was 6, and Gears of War when I was 9, and I only haven't talked to him in like, what, 5 years? Perfectly healthy relationship. Go ahead and give these kids just a teeny weeny tiny bit of trauma. It builds character. Trust me, I should know. All jokes aside, Star Wars was not made with children in mind, at least not initially. I think it's wonderful that audiences of all ages can enjoy the same behemoth of an intellectual property in their respective generations, but the degradation of its artistic integrity is undeniable. And I'm swinging it more than just a sequel trilogy. Like, why the fuck does Cal Kestis swing his lightsaber like a fucking baseball bat? What form is this, huh? Is this Vapad? Is this how Mace Windu fights? He just waves that shit around like he's swinging a dick? You know how obnoxious it is watching him haphazardly swinging an object that cuts through steel like sandpaper on a condom? And to make matters worse, when I slap these fucking stormtroopers, it bounces off their chests like they're Kryptonians. Half of Fallen Order is about Cal finding his identity through the lightsaber he wields. How can I respect the raw power and majesty of such an iconic weapon when Steven from accounting can get dressed in his Space Nazi riot gear and body block it like I really did buy this shit from Hasbro? And for the love of good fucking God, don't get me started with what the fuck they did to Battlefront. They took one of the most iconic games ever and turned it into the martyr that inspired the entire campaign against microtransactions to this very day. With the release of the Star Wars IP back into the wild, there's so many different ways Disney can manage this. But, and this is merely my own preference, but I think they should treat the IP with the level of freedom and creativity as they've given Marvel and then some. Star Wars is based in an entire galaxy with lore that spans several thousand years. And the consequence of that is, in my opinion, some of the best pieces of Star Wars media, including The Mandalorian itself, was made by fans who wished to insert meaningful entries into what was honestly an unfinished piece by George, which is exactly what someone like Dave Filoni is doing. Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, Clone Commando, classic Battlefront, Dark Forces, Jedi Academy. The renaissance of Star Wars gaming was the consequence of ambitious studios who treat the IP with tremendous respect, which allowed creative freedom to be exercised thoroughly when the IP was free. And going back to that in a post-quarantine society, because niggas is stupid right now, is perfectly okay. We can stand to have controversial themes and an IP that sees you sympathizing with actual fascists. Look man, if Marvel can get jiggy with Deadpool growing a baby dick and Wolverine slamming his rod in the back of a man's head like a dirty sex joke while his surrogate 10-year-old daughter is dragging out a fresh cadaver over a bowl of cereal, I think we could stand to see a Twi'lek titty or two. You know, Star Wars should be rated M because it's about wars in the stars. I don't know what the fuck they're about to do with High Republic, but if it isn't about omnicide or mass trauma, it ain't about Star Wars, my G. The heroes of the franchise kidnap babies and mock child slaves while manipulating galactic conflict to force regular civilians to convert to their religious beliefs. They let Anakin's mother get raped and tortured by Tusken Raiders and thought at 8 years old he was too old to be a Jedi. They literally snatched newborns like fresh-baked cookies from poor people with force sensitivity, and the protagonist of the original trilogy was so touch-starved being a farmhand on a dust planet, he made out with his own fucking sister. Seriously, society has evolved past the need for hand-holding with these concepts. I hope. Let me decapitate a shitter when I toss my saber at him, please. We are approaching another potential Star Wars renaissance. Don't fuck it up by trying to spoon-feed me political beliefs or trying to dumb down ideologies for kids. Show some Twi'lek titties. Cut people in half, please and thank you. Twi'lek titties. This has been Arts with the CJ. I wish you all a good morrow, and I'm off for the time being.